Blood dripped from Vanessa's trembling fingers as she clutched the shattered picture frame, tears streaming down her face in the dim light of her office. "No one wants to date me," she whispered, her voice breaking as she turned to face James, the new hire who had accidentally walked in on her moment of complete vulnerability. 34-year-old Vanessa Parker had built her marketing firm from nothing, sacrificing everything for success, but tonight she'd received the wedding invitation from her ex-fiancé who had left her 3 years ago claiming she was too career-focused. Now, alone at 9 p.m. in her corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle, wearing her usual crisp white blouse and charcoal pencil skirt, she felt the weight of her choices crushing her. What if this was it? What if she had traded away her only chance at love and family for a company that could never love her back? James Thompson stood frozen in the doorway, the quarterly reports he'd stayed late to finish still clutched in his hands. At 42, the single father with warm brown eyes and salt and pepper hair had only been working at Parker Marketing for 3 months. His navy blue button-down was wrinkled from the long day, and his tie hung loose around his neck. He'd taken this job after moving across the country to give his 8-year-old daughter Zoe a fresh start after her mother abandoned them both. Now, seeing his normally composed boss in such distress, he faced an impossible choice: retreat and pretend he saw nothing, or step forward and risk his new position. "I'm sorry," James said softly, stepping into the office rather than backing away. "I didn't mean to intrude." Vanessa quickly wiped her tears, embarrassment flooding her face. "It's fine. Just a moment of weakness. You can leave the reports on my desk." She turned away, trying desperately to regain her composure. But James didn't move. "Sometimes weakness is just humanity showing through," he said. "And I think we could all use a little more of that." What happened next would change both their lives forever. Vanessa turned back, her professional mask crumbling completely. "Do you know what today is?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "It's the anniversary of when I chose this company over everything else." She gestured around her luxurious office, then, in a moment of raw vulnerability, lifted the edge of her silk blouse just enough to reveal a small tattoo near her ribcage, a simple infinity symbol with a date beneath it. "The day I lost my baby. The day my fiancé left. The day I decided I'd never be enough for anyone." James felt his heart stop. Was his boss, the woman known throughout the industry as the Ice Queen, sharing her deepest wound with him? And why did he suddenly feel so protective of her? "I should go," Vanessa said quickly, realizing what she'd done. "Please forget this happened. I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Thompson." "James," he corrected gently. "And I'm not going anywhere." Those 5 words hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. But neither could have predicted the storm that was coming, or how it would test them both beyond anything they'd ever faced. 3 weeks later, Vanessa and James found themselves working late again, this time on the biggest pitch of the company's history. Their professional relationship had evolved into a cautious friendship, both pretending that night of vulnerability had never happened. But everything changed when Vanessa's ex-fiancé walked into the office unannounced, now a potential client with the power to either save or destroy everything Vanessa had built. "Hello, Nessa," he said with a smirk that made James's blood boil. "I hear your company's struggling. Thought I might throw you a lifeline, for old time's sake." The question that hung in the air was devastating: would Vanessa sacrifice her dignity and reopen old wounds to save her company? And why did James suddenly feel like he might lose something precious before he even had a chance to claim it? As months passed, Vanessa and James navigated a complex dance of professional boundaries and growing personal connection. James's daughter Zoe began spending time at the office after school, her bright spirit slowly melting the protective walls around Vanessa's heart. For the first time in years, Vanessa found herself looking forward to something other than work: the moments when James would bring coffee to her desk, or when Zoe would show her the latest art project from school. But just as Vanessa began to believe that perhaps she could have both, career success and personal happiness, disaster struck. An anonymous tip to a business journal revealed confidential company information that could only have come from someone with inside access. All evidence pointed to James, the newest executive with access to the leaked files. Standing in her office, facing James across her desk, Vanessa felt her newly awakened heart shattering all over again. Was it all a lie? She demanded, her voice ice-cold despite the tears threatening to fall. Did you get close to me just to destroy everything I've built? James's face paled. Vanessa, you have to believe me. I would never betray you like this. Someone is setting me up. The truth hung in the balance between them. If Vanessa chose wrong, she would either lose her company to a traitor or lose the man who had somehow become essential to her happiness. And time was running out to discover who was really behind the sabotage. In a desperate race against time, Vanessa and James worked together to uncover the real culprit, her ex-fiancé, who had orchestrated the entire scheme to force Vanessa to sell her company to him at a fraction of its worth. The night they discovered the truth, standing in her office with the evidence spread across her desk, something fundamental shifted between them. You believed in me, James said quietly. Even when everything pointed against me. Vanessa looked up at him, vulnerability and strength mingled in her gaze. I've spent my whole life afraid to trust anyone. Afraid that choosing love meant giving up everything else I've worked for. James moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. What if you don't have to choose? What if the right person doesn't ask you to give up your dreams, but helps you build them instead? In that moment, with Seattle's lights twinkling beyond the windows, Vanessa made the bravest decision of her life. She stepped forward and placed her hand on James's chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her palm. I'm terrified, she admitted. I've forgotten how to let anyone in. James covered her hand with his own. Then we'll figure it out together. Because I'm not going anywhere, Vanessa. Not unless you ask me to. Their first kiss wasn't perfect, it was better. It was real and a little awkward and filled with the promise of something neither had dared to hope for, a second chance. 6 months later, Vanessa sat on a park bench watching James push Zoe on the swings, the little girl's laughter carrying across the playground. Her company was thriving, her heart was healing, and for the first time in her life, she understood that true strength wasn't about standing alone, it was about being brave enough to let someone stand beside you. That evening, as they walked hand in hand along the waterfront, James stopped suddenly and turned to face her. I've been carrying this around for weeks, waiting for the right moment, he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. But I'm realizing there's never going to be a perfect time. Life is messy and complicated and beautiful, and I don't want to miss another day not asking you this question. As he knelt before her, Vanessa felt tears of joy replacing all the tears of sorrow she'd shed over the years. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin in the most unexpected moments of vulnerability, when we're brave enough to show our true selves and lucky enough to find someone who sees our broken pieces as beautiful. The ring James held up caught the last golden rays of sunset, but it wasn't the diamond that made Vanessa's breath catch, it was the raw hope in his eyes. For a woman who had built her life around calculated risks and strategic planning, this moment defied all logic. Yet somehow, it felt like the most natural decision she'd ever made. Yes, she whispered, her voice stronger with each repetition. Yes, James. Yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a vintage emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds, James explained that Zoe had helped him pick it out. She said green was the color of new beginnings, he said, his voice thick with emotion. And that's what you've given us both. That night, curled together on Vanessa's sleek leather couch that had never before known the weight of shared dreams, they talked until dawn. James told her about his marriage to Zoe's mother, how they'd been college sweethearts who grew in different directions, and how her postpartum depression had spiraled into a darkness that eventually led her to walk away from them both when Zoe was just 4 years old. I don't know if she ever found peace, he admitted, tracing patterns on Vanessa's palm. But I had to stop waiting for her to come back and start building something stable for Zoe. Vanessa shared her own wounds, how her pregnancy had been unexpected but welcome, how she'd begun dreaming of a family even as she was negotiating the biggest deal of her career. When I lost the baby at 4 months, something broke between us. He couldn't understand why I threw myself back into work. I couldn't explain that it was the only way I knew how to survive. Their confessions continued through the night, each revelation a brick removed from the walls they built around their hearts. By morning, exhausted but lighter, they fell asleep tangled together as the city began to wake. But real life doesn't pause for new love. Monday morning arrived with its usual demands, and now they faced a new challenge, navigating their personal relationship within the professional boundaries of the office. Vanessa had built her reputation on uncompromising standards and objectivity. How would her team react to discovering she was engaged to a man she'd hired just months ago? "We should keep this quiet for now," Vanessa suggested as they drove to work separately. "Just until we figure out the best way to handle it professionally." James agreed, though the weight of the secret felt uncomfortable. "Whatever you think is best. But I'm proud to be with you, Vanessa. I don't want to hide forever." Their attempt at discretion lasted exactly 3 hours and 27 minutes, until Zoe burst into the office after school, racing past Vanessa's startled assistant with a handmade card clutched in her small hands. "Miss Vanessa. Dad told me you're going to be my new mom," the 8-year-old announced at full volume, her excitement echoing through the open-concept office space. "I made you this to say welcome to our family." The silence that followed was deafening. 26 pairs of eyes swiveled between Zoe's beaming face, James's mortified expression as he appeared in the doorway behind his daughter, and Vanessa's uncharacteristically flustered countenance. Vanessa looked down at the card, covered in glitter and featuring 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow, then back at her staff's shocked faces. In that crystallized moment, she realized she had a choice: retreat into the safe, controlled persona she'd cultivated for years, or embrace the messy, beautiful truth. Taking a deep breath, she knelt to Zoe's level. "This is the most beautiful card I've ever received," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "And I would be honored to be part of your family." Standing up, still holding Zoe's hand, she addressed her stunned employees. "As you've just heard, in a slightly more dramatic fashion than we planned," she said with a small laugh, "Mr. Thompson and I are engaged. This won't change anything about our professional standards or expectations. But it does mean I might occasionally leave the office before midnight, which I'm told is actually normal human behavior." The tension broke as laughter rippled through the room, followed by a spontaneous round of applause and congratulations. Later, Vanessa's assistant Renee would tell her that the staff had been running a secret betting pool on when she and James would finally admit their feelings for each other. "We've been watching you two dance around each other for months," Renee confessed. "It was like our own private office romance novel." But not everyone celebrated their happiness. 2 weeks after their engagement became public, Vanessa received an anonymous email containing photos of James meeting with a woman at a coffee shop across town. The message was simple: ask him about April Thornton. Ask him what he's hiding. The name meant nothing to Vanessa, but the seed of doubt was planted. The photos showed James and the unknown woman in what appeared to be an intense conversation, their heads close together, his hand briefly covering hers on the table. Nothing explicitly romantic, but intimate enough to raise questions. That night, as they prepared dinner in her kitchen, now their kitchen, as James and Zoe had gradually moved most of their belongings into her spacious downtown apartment, Vanessa felt the weight of the unasked question between them. "You're quiet tonight," James observed, bumping her hip gently with his as he chopped vegetables beside her. "Tough day?" Vanessa set down her knife. "Who is April Thornton?" James's hand stilled. The color drained from his face so quickly that Vanessa felt her stomach drop. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked, his voice carefully controlled. "Someone sent me photos of you meeting her," Vanessa said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "The email suggested you're hiding something." James closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, the pain she saw there made her heart constrict. I should have told you sooner, he said quietly. April is Zoe's mother. The revelation hit Vanessa like a physical blow. She's back? Since when? Why didn't you tell me? She contacted me about a month ago, James explained, setting down the knife and turning to face Vanessa fully. She's been in treatment for the past 4 years, depression, addiction. She's sober now, working through her issues. She wanted to apologize and, she wants to see Zoe. Vanessa felt the room tilt slightly. And you've been meeting with her without telling me? Without telling Zoe? I needed to be sure she was stable before I even considered letting her near Zoe again, James said, his voice tight with emotion. I needed to understand her intentions. Is she passing through town, or is she planning to try to reclaim her place in Zoe's life? I had to know before I disrupted Zoe's world again. And what about our world? Vanessa asked, hating the tremor in her voice. The one we're building together? James reached for her hands, which she reluctantly allowed him to take. That's why I didn't tell you right away. I was afraid, he broke off, swallowing hard. Afraid of what? Afraid you'd think I was still in love with her, he admitted. Afraid you'd believe I might leave you for her if she wanted me back. Afraid you'd pull away before I could explain that meeting with her only confirmed what I already knew, that what we have is real and solid and everything I want. Vanessa wanted to believe him. But the old fears, that she wasn't enough, that she would always be someone's second choice, rose up like ghosts. What does she want? She asked finally. She wants to apologize to Zoe. To explain, as much as you can explain something like that to a child. She's not asking for custody or even regular visitation. She just wants Zoe to know she didn't leave because of anything Zoe did. Vanessa nodded slowly, processing. And what do you want? James's answer came without hesitation. I want what's best for Zoe. And I want you, Vanessa. Those two things aren't in conflict. They talked through the night, working through fears and insecurities, making plans for how to handle April's reappearance in a way that would protect Zoe while still allowing for healing. By morning, exhausted but united, they had decided to meet April together, as a family, before making any decisions about Zoe. The meeting took place at a family counselor's office, neutral territory. April Thornton was not what Vanessa had expected. The woman who had abandoned her child and husband was now thin and serious, with clear eyes and a quiet dignity. She spoke directly and took full responsibility for her actions, never once trying to excuse the pain she had caused. I don't deserve forgiveness, she told Vanessa when they had a moment alone. But Zoe deserves to know she was loved, even when I wasn't capable of showing it. And James deserves happiness. Her eyes, so like Zoe's, met Vanessa's directly. He looks at you the way he never looked at me, like you're his home. The path forward wasn't simple. There were difficult conversations with Zoe, who cycled through confusion, anger, joy, and uncertainty about her mother's return. There were awkward moments at school events when both Vanessa and April were present. There were nights when James woke from dreams where he had failed to protect his daughter, and Vanessa held him until the fear subsided. But through it all, their bond strengthened. The challenge that might have broken a weaker relationship instead forged theirs into something unbreakable. 6 months later, as summer turned to fall, they married in a small ceremony in Vanessa's parents' backyard in Connecticut. Zoe served as flower girl and best daughter, scattering rose petals and beaming with pride. April attended as a guest, her presence a testament to how far they had all come in their journey of healing. During the reception, as twilight painted the sky in shades of lavender and gold, Vanessa found a quiet moment with her new husband beneath an old oak tree. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" she asked, leaning into his embrace. "That night when you found me crying in my office?" James smiled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Not specifically. But I knew something important was happening. Something that felt like the beginning of a story, not the end of one." Vanessa thought about the woman she had been then, accomplished but isolated, successful but empty. I was so afraid of being vulnerable, she admitted. Of needing anyone. And now? James asked softly. Now I understand that needing people isn't weakness. It's the whole point. She looked across the lawn where Zoe was teaching Vanessa's nieces a complicated hand-clapping game, her laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Family is worth the risk. As they rejoined their guests, Vanessa caught sight of the small tattoo on her ribcage, visible through the delicate lace of her wedding dress when she moved a certain way. The infinity symbol remained, but she had added to it, a tiny phoenix rising above the date, symbolizing rebirth from ashes. Some wounds never fully heal, but they can transform us. Some losses can never be replaced, but new joy can grow alongside old grief. And sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings emerge from moments when we feel most broken. 1 year later, as Vanessa sat in her doctor's office clutching James's hand, they heard the sound that would change their lives once more, the rapid, underwater galloping of their baby's heartbeat. Tears streamed down Vanessa's face as the doctor pointed out tiny hands and feet on the ultrasound monitor. Everything looks perfect, the doctor assured them. Strong heartbeat, good size for 14 weeks. 14 weeks. 1 week further than she had gotten before. 1 week into uncharted territory. That night, as they shared the news with Zoe, watching her eyes widen with excitement at becoming a big sister, Vanessa felt the final pieces of her heart knit together. The journey hadn't been straight or simple. There had been detours and obstacles she never could have anticipated. But standing in their kitchen, surrounded by the family they had built together, chosen and created through love rather than obligation, she knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Life doesn't always give us what we think we want. Sometimes it gives us what we need instead, if we're brave enough to recognize it when it arrives in unexpected packages. Sometimes our greatest wounds become doorways to our deepest healing. And sometimes, the people who see us at our most broken are the ones who love us most completely. If this story touched your heart today, remember that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the courage to be seen as we truly are. I'd love to know which country you're watching from. And if you believe in second chances and the healing power of love, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us we're all works in progress, worthy of love exactly as we are.